Hi, we're having a conversation with Dr. Jeff Clark. He is Secretary-Treasurer of the Association of Private Enterprise Education. And we are celebrating in Guatemala the conference, the annual conference of APEE. And we're very happy, we're very proud of having you all here. But why is it that APEE is happening now in Guatemala?
Well, that's a very important question. This is the 34th annual conference of the Association of Private Enterprise Education. And for the last 10 years, there has been a growing influence in the association of Latin American scholars, particularly emanating from University Francisco Mariquim. Over 10 years ago, the first UFM scholars began attending the APEE conference, and then eventually Manuel Ayala himself. And we noticed as an association not only a growing attendance and participation by UFM scholars, but a growing contribution on their part to the critical literature in free markets and classical liberalism. The contribution of Latin American scholars has been excellent, and not only have they increased in number, but the importance of their research has increased substantially. We as an association noticed that there's a significant difference between the research that is produced by scholars who have actually lived under and in countries which do not have free markets. American scholars, of which the association was primarily made up of for the first 24 years of its existence, have a theoretical, principled understanding of markets, and we argue using logic and statistical analysis, primarily originating from the United States and comparing it to other countries. But that's quite different from the kind of passion and hands-on experience that scholars originating from countries and having lived under regimes which did not have free markets bring to the discussion. Their practical hands-on experience and both the sadness and disappointment in not having free markets balanced against the joy and satisfaction of living in a more free society has taught many American scholars a valuable lesson in terms of the value of freedom. As the world is aware now, America has taken a painful turn to the left, and we are experiencing now much of the sadness and disappointment as we lose more and more of our freedom. Where the Latin scholars have been telling us about this for many years. These are things that they have gone through and moved past. And many of the UFM scholars were able to give us firsthand accounts, and much of their research recounted actual experiences living under more statist regimes and in countries that had trade restrictions, labor restrictions, limited private property, very little rule of law, if any. And it's been a tremendous contribution to the literature in free enterprise that the Latin scholars have made. About 7 years ago, we began to receive invitations from, first of all, Father Joe Cacayason, and then Manuel Ayala, and then Father Joe Cacayason has continued to extend that invitation for the association to bring its conference to Guatemala for many years. This was a situation that which for many years we thought would be very difficult. Would be a very distant conference, a very expensive conference, and we were not convinced that we'd be able to draw and attract a large crowd.
But there is a lot.
Indeed, there is. This is the second largest meeting in the history of the association. In a time period when travel budgets are very, very difficult to acquire, this is turning out to be a extremely successful meeting, and the exchange between the large contingent of Latin American scholars, predominantly invited here by UFM, and the American scholars has been extremely productive. We're pleased to be here, and the literature in free markets is no doubt in the next few years going to benefit substantially from the interchange here. Our hosts, Francisco Mariquim, have done a marvelous job of organizing the conference, and it seems to be working very, very well. And we've attracted a cavalcade of stars from all over the world, particularly some of the real Latin stars like Jose Pinera.
And speaking of value, you mentioned value a couple of times before. Why is it that the association makes emphasis in education?
We believe that the importance of an understanding of free markets is most efficiently distributed to the widest audience as possible. Unlike many quantitative theoretical economists who speak in a language of mathematics and primarily only speak between and among themselves, somewhat like a priestly sect, we believe that important ideas in economics need to be disseminated. And by teaching a teacher who will then subsequently, through the multiplier effect of their teaching, teach more students and more. Therefore, we believe that we can generate more effective change by disseminating well-proven ideas as opposed to just chatting among ourselves about very fine points of minutiae in regard to economic theory. And of course, there's the typical understanding that education is really for tomorrow as opposed to today. Unfortunately, education about freedom is very much like shaving. No matter how good a job you do today, you have to get up tomorrow and do it all over again. That each new generation has the ability to forget the important lessons that we were trained on, and that each new generation needs to be acquainted with the working of a free market system and the value of freedom and individual responsibility.
Well, Dr. Clark, thank you very much for sharing these ideas with us, and thank you too.